Welcome back students in our this session, and in this session I'm going to teach you the third chapter, that is the cell, and this is your assignment number 2. So as you all have seen that the first assignment I have given you in the PDF form so that you can learn the new terms and by which you can able to understand this chapter, the cell. Now in this session I'm going to teach you about the size and shapes of the cell and the structure of the cell. Now the first thing is that what is cell? A cell is defined as the smallest structural and functional unit of life. Now for an example, just as bricks are the building blocks of houses, cells are the building blocks of all living organisms. Means all the living organisms, they are made up of the combination of different type of cells in their body. So we can say that the cell is the structural as well as the functional unit of life, because our life depends on these cells only. Now the cell and the cell theory. Cells were discovered in 1665 by the English inventor and scientist, and his name is Robert Hooke. He is the one who discovered this unit known as cell. He designed a microscope to observe different objects. While observing a thin slice of cork, he noticed small box-like structures. Children, you all know what is cork. The cap of the champagne bottle is known as cork. So when he observed this thin slice of that cork, what he have noticed? He noticed that there are small box-like structures in that cork. He called these boxes cells. Now this cell is derived from a Latin word for a little room. Around the same time, the Anton von Leeuwenhoek observed blood, rainwater, etc. through his simple microscope. And what he observed in that microscope is he observed tiny single-celled microbes in a drop of water. So he observed this, that there are some microbes present in a drop of water. Now further research by the scientists M. Sheldon, Theodor Schiven and Rudolf Virchow led to the formulation of the cell theory. And this cell theory is as follows. Now the first point is all living things are composed of cells. As I told you that all the living organisms is made up of cells, because cell is the basic structure and functional unit of life. Second is the cell is the structural and functional unit of living things. As we depend on these cells, working of body function depends on the cells only. So we can say that the cell is the structural because it is building our body, and as well as the functional unit of life. Third point is all cells come from the division of pre-existing cells. Like number of cells, they came from the division of pre-existing cells. Means the cells that are present in our body, they keep on dividing themselves in our body, and in this way they increase in the number. Now we see the size and shapes of the cells. Now most cells are microscopic, that is, it can be seen only under a microscope. Their size is measured in microns and micrometer. Means the cells, we can only see them with the help of the microscope, and we can measure the cells, the size of the cell in terms of microns or micrometer. Now the average size of cell ranges between 3 micrometer and 30 micrometer. This is the average size of the cell. Now the smallest cells are those of a bacterium, which range from 0.2 to 0.5 micrometer. This is the smallest cell, and the smallest cell is of bacterium. In our body, the smallest cells are red blood cells, and it is about 7 microns in diameter. The ostrich egg is the largest cell, measuring 170 into 135 millimeter. So this ostrich egg is known to be the largest cell. The nerve cells are the longest cells in human body, measuring in meter or more in length. So the nerve cell is the longest cell present in our human body. And we can see the example of the group of liver cells here. In this, you can see that these cells have all the characteristics of animal cells, and you can see that few organelles are there, like cytoplasm, nuclear membrane, nucleus, mitochondria, and granules. Now when I teach you animal cell, I'll explain these organelles at that time to you. As I said that the nerve cell are the longest cell present in the human body. Now these nerve cells, they have branched and elongated structure and for receiving and conducting stimuli. Now as I said, for receiving and conducting stimuli, it means that the nerve cell is responsible for receiving and for carrying the messages in our body from the different organs to the brain. So whatever we feel when we touch any hot thing, when we touch any cold thing, we get a sensation of hot and cold. All these things we can able to identify with the help of this nerve cell only. So this nerve cell is responsible for carrying the messages to the from the different organs of our body to the brain. The cells also vary greatly in their shape. Some cells, such as amoeba and white blood cells, change their shape frequently, whereas others, like nerve cells, RBCs, and most plant cells, assume a definite shape. So we can say that some cells, such as amoeba and white blood cells, they change their shape frequently, and some cells like nerve cells, RBCs, and the most plant cells, they have a well defined shape. They do not change their shape. Now the cells may be long, for example nerve cells, or circular cells, example fat cells and red blood cells. Now the nerve cell is in the form of a longer tube, and the fat cells and red blood cells, they are in the form of a circular form. Now they may be spherical, oval, rectangular, spindle shaped, or cylindrical, depending upon the functions they have to perform. So these are the shapes of the cell, and the cells are present in different varieties, may be spherical, oval, rectangular, spindle shape, or cylindrical, and this depends upon the function, that which function they have to perform in the body. Now here you can see the photograph of a white blood cell, and in this white blood cell, it occurs in the bloodstream and is specialized for engulfing harmful bacteria. Means these WBCs, these white blood cells, they are their function is to engulf the harmful bacteria. They prevent our body and they increase the immunity of our body so that the harmful bacteria does not enter into our body. It is able to change its shape and move about, even though the walls of blood vessels into the surrounding tissue. Now this white blood cell have the capability to change their shape and to move about in the blood. Our next example is ciliated cells. These form the lining of the nose and windpipe. Now this ciliated cell is present inside the lining of the nose and the windpipe, and the tiny cytoplasmic hairs called cilia. You can see that there are tiny hairs, and these tiny hairs are known as cilia. It is they are present in the form of cilia and in a continual flicking movement, keeping up a stream of fluid that is mucus. Now this ciliated cells, they are responsible for producing a fluid, a mucus in our nose, so that it carries dust and bacteria away from the lungs. It does not able to so that it protects the dust and the bacteria does not enter inside the lungs. That is why this ciliated cells is responsible for protecting our body so that the bacteria does not enter into the lungs. Now here you can see the different types of cells showing variation in their shape and function. Means they are in their different shapes. You can see the fat cell, it is in the form of a circular disc, and the smooth muscle cell, which is longer in size and shape. Now the shape and size of cells are related to the specific function they perform, while number of cells is related to increase in the size of the organ or body. Now this shape and size of cells, they are related to their specific function. As I told you that their shape is maybe circular, maybe oval, maybe spindle shaped, and this depends upon the function of that particular part. Now this they perform while number of cells is related to increase in the size of the organ and body. Now this number of cells depends upon the size of our body or the size of the organ. Now thus small organisms have limited number of cells, and larger ones such as elephant, whale or banyan tree, they have a countless number of cells. So as I told you that the number of cells depends upon the size of the organ and the body. So the smaller organisms, they contain the smaller number of cells, but the larger animals, the larger plants, they contain the countless number of cells. In men, the number of cells is estimated to be about 100 trillion. Now all these things are important, so you have to remember these points. Now we see the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Now first we see that what is prokaryotic cell. A prokaryotic cell has a plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane. It lacks certain organelles. The nucleus is not well developed and is without a bounding membrane. For example, the bacterium. Now I'll show you the picture of bacterium. See, this is the picture of bacterium, and it's a prokaryotic cell, and it has a tail, and this tail is known as flagellum. You can see this tail, and this tail is known as flagellum. Then it has a plasma membrane, or what we call as cell membrane also. Now it contains certain organelles like mesosome, ribosome, chromosomal DNA and plasmid DNA. Now it contains a cell wall also. Now this cell wall, protects the cell so that the harmful substance does not enter inside the cell body. Now all the functions of these we study later on, but for you this is a prokaryotic cell and its example is bacterium. As I said you that it does not have a nucleus, so you can see that in this picture there is no nucleus, and it lacks certain organelles also. All the organelles are not present in this, and it contains a membrane. So you can see here that the plasma membrane is here. Now this one is an example of a prokaryotic cell. Now we see what is eukaryotic cell. A eukaryotic cell has a bounding plasma membrane and has various membrane-bound structures in the cell, for example, paramecium. Now we can see the picture. Now this is the picture of eukaryotic cell, example paramecium. Now in this you can see that there are nucleus is also present in this, so it contains a well-defined nucleus and it has a plasma membrane also. And the cilia are there. The small hair-like structures are known as cilia. With the help of these cilia, it can able to move. Now this is the picture of Paramecium, and this is a eukaryotic cell, and it has a bounding plasma membrane and has various membrane bound structures that is present inside this cell. Now the other thing is that primitive nucleus, which is not surrounded by a nuclear membrane, is known as nucleoid. So you have to learn this definition. This is the definition of nucleoid, that the primitive nucleus which is not surrounded by a nuclear membrane, it is known as nucleoid. Now we come to the very important part of this chapter, that is the structure of cell. Now in this structure we are going to study about the different types of organelles, their functions, which are present in the plant as well as in the animal cell. Now first thing about the structure of cell is that a typical cell consists of three parts. Now the three main parts of the cell are: first is cell membrane, second is cytoplasm, and the third one is nucleus. Now first we see that what is cell membrane, or the other name for cell membrane is plasma membrane. It forms the outer covering of each cell. So as I have shown you in the diagram of Paramecium and in the diagram of Bacterium, that this cell membrane is the outer covering of each cell. It is a living, thin, delicate and selectively permeable membrane. It has fine pores through which substance may enter or leave the cell. Now this plasma membrane contains very minute pores by which the substance may enter inside the cell, and the necessary things may enter in the cell to provide the nourishment over there. Now its major functions, the major functions of cell membrane are: number one, it controls the entry and exit of materials in and out of the cell. Its function is that it had a control on the entry and the existence of materials, and it allows only selective substance to pass through it. It does not allow all the substance to pass through it, but it allows only few selective substance that are required for the cell to pass through this membrane. Hence it is called as selectively permeable membrane. Now second point we see, it provides protection to the internal contents of the cell. Whatever organelles, whatever contents are present inside the cell, it provides the protection to all the organelles of the cell. Now in plant cells, there is a cell wall in addition to the plasma membrane, which is non-living and made up of complex carbohydrate called cellulose. Now the cell wall provides mechanical support, protection and rigidity to the plant cells. Now children, this is the function of cell wall, that it provides mechanical support, protection and rigidity to the plant cell. Now what we have studied up till now is the cell membrane and the cell wall. Now cell membrane, as I told you, that it controls the entry and exit of the materials and in and out of the cell, and it allows only the few substances to pass through it, and that is why it is known as selectively permeable membrane. And the function of cell wall is it provides mechanical support, protection and rigidity to the plant cell. Now I'll show you in the diagram that which is known as cell membrane and which part is known as cell wall. As I have explained you children about the cell wall and cell membrane, so you can see here that this membrane is known as the cell membrane, and it allows only the selective substance to pass through it. And the function of cell wall, as I told you, that it provides the support, protection and rigidity to the plant body. The next organelle is the cytoplasm, the part of the cell which is in between the plasma membrane and nuclear membrane is called the cytoplasm. Now this cytoplasm, it is a jelly-like substance containing a variety of small structures called cell organelles. For example, mitochondria, lysosomes, Golgi bodies, and endoplasmic reticulum, etc. All these are present inside this cytoplasm. And other inclusions such as storage products, fats, proteins, lipids, etc. Now, water is the main component that is present up to 90% of cytoplasm. Many chemical reactions takes place in it. Now, cytoplasm is the physical basis of all metabolic activities, and various cell organelles, they perform specific functions in it only. Now, I'll show you that where is cytoplasm in the plant cell. Now as you can see, this is the diagram of a plant cell. In this whole blue part, all this is known as cytoplasm, and this is in the form of a jelly like, and it contains all the other organelles. As you can see, that mitochondria, the vacuole, the tonoplast, the rough endoplasmic and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, all are present inside this cytoplasm only, and this whole blue part is known as cytoplasm. You can see all this is known as cytoplasm, and it is in the form of a jelly like, and it carries all the other organelles inside it. Now this is all about the three organelles that I have explained you: the cell wall, cell membrane, and cytoplasm. Now in our next session I am going to explain you the other different organelles.